duck, or where it smelled so strongly of like beets and carrots, these red carrots, that it totally changed my mind about vegetables. Like they at that moment they stopped being a secondary thing, and I became obsessed with I need to stop being in this band and build a roof garden in Brooklyn, and I need to ingratiate myself with this chef and get vines and cuttings and seeds, because the difference that stuff makes is literally shocking.
Now, your palate seems to be reasonably open, as in you're quite an adventurous eater. Are there things that you wouldn't eat?
I didn't eat anything growing up. I was a very non-adventurous eater, and I whenever I meet my nieces and nephews who don't eat things, I always tell them, "You're lucky. That means you get to enjoy them later." Because I've just learned to enjoy pretty much anything. What do I not like? I tend not to like things that are metallic, meaning I don't like salmon. It's a strange thing to draw a line at when I eat cod sperm sacs. To draw your line at salmon is sort of a strange place, but the most innocuous fish that appears in every wedding. But I don't like the iron, the metallic taste.
Okay. The kind of mineral kind of thing that comes through?
No, I don't quite understand, because I'm trying to figure out what it is I don't like, because I don't like, if liver has too high of an irony taste, I don't like it. Like when the liver becomes too penny tasting.
Yeah.
I tend coppery. I don't like that metallic taste. But it's also, I think I've learned that my palate is a little bit sweet, meaning that like I love espresso, but I prefer like half of a spoon of sugar and a little, steamed milk.
We were talking about this the other night when we were speaking about beer, and we were talking about all those like...
I don't like overly hoppy beer.
Yeah, like things that are actually unpleasant and bitter to the taste.
For some reason I love Fernet Branca, which is something that's pretty bitter. But I hated gin until recently. I can only like certain gins if they're too much like, I don't like grapefruits. Mm-hmm. Like grapefruit is a taste that,
you find it quite unpleasant.
I find it very unpleasant. It's a taste that like, it's certainly not me being like small, closed-minded about things. I mean, I eat a lot of weird stuff, but grapefruit is one of those tastes I don't understand how anyone likes. It's just there's a type of bitterness that my palate doesn't agree with. Whereas Pat and I, because Pat, the drummer, and I eat together all the time, and we both, love food in different ways. But Pat drinks black coffee, and I drink like a lightly sugared cappuccino. And
I was going to make a comment there about you being a big poof.
Yeah, no, but Pat's palate and I are really aligned, except for his tends to lean towards the bitter and mine tends to lean, like he'll say something's too sweet before I will, and I'll say something's too bitter before he will, but it's really right on the outside peripheries.
How much do you know about the concept of super tasters and the like?
I don't know much. I do know DJ McNanny, but that's all.
So
you know DJ, right?
Yeah. Of course.
I believe he's a super taster.
Well, there's a difference between a super taster, as in he's a fantastic taster, but a super taster is someone who has a larger concentration. Sorry, a larger
little
concentration
nodules in
of
a
the
certain
little
area.
pupillae, on their tongue, which allows them to. They are actually physiologically superior when it comes to tasting certain sensations within their mouth. But the downside to that
become
is
hypersensitive to certain things.
Yes, so you cannot really handle bitterness or spice. How are you with spice?
I like spice. I'm not one of those guys that's like, bring it on, you know what I mean? But I do like heat. I don't like it when it burns my tongue and it makes it's almost like a noise. If it's too loud and I can't hear anything else, I don't like that. I like it when it's integrated. I do like when I was a kid, there was a bunch of different buffalo wing places where I grew up, and I hated all but one. And one was just as hot as all the others, but the spice was integrated into the butter. As long as it's part of the taste, I like it. When it's separate from the taste, it sounds like I mix up my
you
experiences all the time.
I was just in London and went for a Chinese Szechuan place, and I read it was going to be one of the top places in London. As soon as all the food arrived, and it was quite expensive, my girlfriend tasted one of the dishes, tasted it, and she's like, oh shit, you're not going to be able to eat this. It was so hot. But somehow it
was integrated well enough.
the dish was so complex. Like the heat wasn't the only element in the dish.
Well, that to me is like the thing that for me it's all about the heat. If it's detached from the rest of the tastes, I don't enjoy it.
You get food. I love this.
But that's the same with it's the same with sound. It's like if you have a treble that's separated from the rest of the music, then all you're doing is hearing that and it's distracting you. If it's attached to the rest of the sound, it's quite lovely. You know, it's the same concept to me.
All to do with balance, isn't it?
Yeah,
in some way.
but I also like playful stuff where stuff sticks out a little bit. If that's part of the fun, you know what I mean. It shouldn't just be balanced, always elegant. Like that's one thing I've loved about wine lately is like finding things that are a little bit wrong. I do like it when I put my face in a glass of wine and it smells like eggs, and then you taste it, it doesn't have any of that flavor. You know, like when it tastes like dirt, but it smells like eggs, and I don't mind that playfulness and stuff. I don't need everything to be, you know, perfectly elegant. You know, it's the same with, you know, fashion. It's like, yeah, of course you want a suit that's perfectly tailored, but it's pretty funny when you see David Byrne in a huge suit. Like, you know, part of the playfulness is like
a suit that gets gradually bigger as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Couple more questions. Be very quick with these. Food on the road is notoriously bad.
Yes. We have a couple of solutions.
Tell me.
We bring a rice cooker, and we get really nice rice, and we get really nice Japanese sides. We get really good nori.
Are you serious?
Yes. We bring a rice cooker, and we bring our own nori and our own sesame seeds and sesame oils and like condiments. I try to also get really nice olive oil. We get a bunch of condiments we bring with us so that we can make, like, I can make my tuna salad, which is like nice tuna, like line caught tuna, olive oil, a little bit of mayonnaise, capers, salt and pepper, and Coleman's mustard.
Are you serious?
For the kick, and then I eat that with lettuce, and that's just always good and makes me feel good. And we eat rice, and you know, like we eat a lot of rice, like nice rice on the bus because it just makes us feel better. Whereas a bunch of like shitty sandwiches and wraps and things like
stuff
that
is put on as writers,
especially when it's like wanky fake good food wraps, like, you know, like smoked mozzarella and sun-dried tomato, like, you know, a bunch of decent food ruined. That's a bunch of what you get. And
you said you had a second solution to all of this. Is that coming to Toronto and coming out with me?
Well, no, but it's like we do try to eat. Yeah, it's like we do try to eat. I'm sorry we missed the other night. It was just impossible to show.
You apologize to Corey Vitello from the Harvard Room.
I'm sorry, really, Corey. It was so hard for us. Everyone was really sick and exhausted, and we couldn't get it together. The sound check took too long. We couldn't have eaten but we would have eaten right up till we played, and then we would have played like this. Oh God, oh Jesus! Because I know what eating with him is like, and it's not a half-hearted affair.
Last question for you. When you think of the expression good food, and for me, beer and wine is food.
Yep.
Obviously. What is good food for you?
I mean, it can be a bunch of things. It can be comfort food from your childhood, but it can be a new experience of really good food. I think for me, it's just like eating things that change you a little bit. Either change you or remind you of yourself. Like that to me is something I really like. You're either tasting things that are new and you have to make decisions about, or you're tasting things that like remind you of a good centered part of yourself. Like there's wines I like that I just taste because I'm like, this is my normal drinking wine and I like it and it makes me feel at home. Or like a coffee does that. Like a certain espresso makes me feel at home. But just not this detached experience of shitty food. I mean, I've been obsessed with suburban sprawl and with a loathing of it, and I wasn't thinking about it in terms of food. I was always thinking about it in terms of just like, you know, everyone has to have a McMansion, and everyone has to have 2 cars, and everyone has to have 5 iPods.
Do you have one of those yet?
What?
A McMansion?
I don't have it. I have a rented apartment in Brooklyn. But I wanted to buy land around a small town in Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania? Why Pennsylvania?
Because it's close to New York, and it has different kinds of. It's not as expensive as Connecticut. It's not as overdeveloped as New York. And it has like almost no rules stopping sprawl. So like the area around Philadelphia is just sprawl. It's a nightmare. So I wanted to ring a small town as a place to retire to and make things. But I also wanted to grow, set up some really good gardens and.
Are you serious?
Yeah, set up a really nice little farm, and try and work with a local public school to be like, look, I'll donate anything we grow, but all these kids that have an opportunity to do a bunch of things with their lives should come and learn how to grow their own food a little bit. Not as like because growing up in America where I grew up, you had a choice. I grew up in an agricultural town, and you chose to be a farmer or to go to college. You chose to separate your life. Either you're going to be a farmer, and most likely you're going to grow soy, or you're going to go to college. And I thought that was a real crime because I was lucky enough to be raised by parents who you learned to grow your own food. Like, you learned to grow tomatoes. Even though they couldn't cook to save their lives, we knew how to garden. Like, I knew how to till and mulch, and I knew how to make the soil better. And
I never knew this about you, James.
yeah, it was just part of what we grew up with. My parents are old. My father was born in 1931. He's a Depression baby. So they fucking knew how to grow food. And I just wanted to be to make their experience of growing food not something that's subjugated, not you're not going to go to college, you're going to be a farmer. I wanted it to be a little more integrated into understanding where your food comes from and enjoying it, and and if that was an experiment that worked in a small town, it'd be a kind of an interesting model for how things could be a little bit different. I mean, imagine if your local land, your local landowners and people, instead of just paying taxes for a public school, actually donated some land, and the school had a farm, and people grew up knowing what real vegetables were, didn't grow up knowing what industrial vegetables were, grew up knowing what a tomato was. I mean, that's the thing for me. I can't eat tomatoes. The rest of the vegetables we grew were okay, but the tomatoes we grew were literally New Jersey legendary tomatoes. You could just eat them without anything on them. You didn't even have to salt them. And I can't eat these hothouse tomatoes. And we also had wild strawberries. And I can't eat strawberries anymore because they just don't have any taste. They're these big, bulbous, pale things that look great dipped in shitty chocolate, but in fact are just inedible. They just taste like clay to me. When you had those little fingertip-sized red wild strawberries. So,
Mr. Murphy, it's been a pleasure spending lunch with you. It's been a pleasure having lunch with you and having a chance to chat with you. Thank you very much for taking the time out with Good Food Revolution.
my pleasure.
We'll see you very soon, perhaps in New York or perhaps somewhere else.
Yes.
Take care, sir.
Hell yeah.